All right. Got my lighting. Okay, that works. Well, hello, everyone. It's your girl, Gabrielle. Welcome to a brand new episode of Hot Topics. This is the show where we talk about things in education, mental health, physical health, finance, social services, or anything else that is steamy. And this is a show where we like to have that real talk. We like to have those real conversations. We like to, excuse me. We like to have those conversations that you only, talk about with your teachers or you talk about with your friends, or maybe it's taboo or we don't really like to talk about it because then it makes it real. Well, we're here to make it real today by having those conversations today. And today's topic is a repeat topic, which is, let me get my banner here, a child of divorce. So, part 3, right? You could check out our other episodes for parts 1 and 2, but today is part 3. So, not only is there a repeat topic, but there's a repeat guest, and I am excited to bring him back to the show to have this conversation. His name is Harvey Laguerre, and I want to remind you about who he is. So let's get right into it. Who is Harvey Laguerre? I hope I'm saying his name right. Let me tell you who he is. Or matter of fact, let me remind you about who he is. So Harvey Laguerre is a 47-year-old stay-at-home dad of 4. The emergence of COVID-19 led to the creation of a relationship podcast with his wife called Love is Black. The success of that podcast emboldened him to create his own. Men Are the Prize podcast is the result of years of learning what it means to be a man in the world today. The definition of masculinity has changed drastically and not for the better. Attributes that were once manly are now toxic. What has not changed is the lack of safe spaces for men to express their emotions. Being a vulnerable man is not celebrated like it should be. This podcast is that safe space for men to open up and reveal their inner monologue. This podcast is the what, where, when, why, and how of manhood. Beautiful, beautiful. All right, so let's bring them on to the stage right now.
Hello.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Welcome back to the show and welcome back to the hot seat.
Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
I'm glad I didn't scare you away from the last time. All right, so we're here to talk about being a child of divorce, and you have an interesting story to tell. So I'd love for you to talk about it.
Okay.
So I'm going to hand over the baton to you, and I'm just going to have you get right into it.
Okay. Um, I'm Haitian, brought up in obviously in a Haitian household. My parents got together very young. My mom turned 18 a few months before I was born. That relationship was toxic from the beginning. They weren't really meant to be. So they got together. I was born, only child, at least between those two. And obviously I lived with my parents, but growing up, it became apparent pretty quickly that that relationship was toxic, was abusive in many ways, physically, emotionally, psychologically. So growing up in that, at least the first 10 years of my life, growing up in that, around that kind of marriage, obviously had a real effect with relationships I would have in the future. But growing up with that and seeing how my father treated my mother and how my mom dealt with it and the struggle and how family knew what was happening and really didn't do anything about it. They just kind of let it be. There's a lot of, oh, we're not supposed to interfere, or just, they'll figure it out, that kind of thing. So being a child of divorce, there's a lot of different angles for me because it affected me in a lot of different ways. So, one, marriage in general, being in a home where two people who should never have been married, should never even gotten together anyway, were together. Marriage didn't look good to me because I was living in a terrible one. So that had an effect that after I finally made it out of that house and grew up and became my own man, I'm like, I'm not getting married. Why would I do that? Why would I put myself or anybody else through that? Why would I put a child through that? Because I didn't see a good example of marriage. But to go back to that, I just remember them fighting, arguing, stuff being thrown, punches being thrown, items being thrown. I remember all this happening. My mom upset, police coming to the house, all these things. And finally, my mom had enough. And this is me about 10 years old. And the next step after the relationship ended was a few different factors. One, um, I have to go to court because obviously he's divorced, but I don't know if this is something that's even still done now. But then I have to go to court and I have to sit with the judge and tell the judge who I want to live with. So I had to basically pick my parent, which was for a 10-year-old, just not something that should be done. I shouldn't be deciding something like that. So that immediately I felt guilty about. I'm picking one or the other. So whoever I don't choose is going to hate me. It's my fault. All these type of things going on there. What I had was a parent who decided to become a better one to try to win me, which in the end worked, but I was only 10, which hurt the other parent. It was just a lot of negativity, a lot of back and forth, a lot of stuff going on. And while living in that home with two people, married couple together, it wasn't great, but it was what I was used to. I was used to my parents being in the house together. So once that was over and I had to deal with my parents no longer being there and ended up living with my father when it really shouldn't have been that way and hurting my mother, but she would never say that to me, but I knew that's what happened. Um, it was difficult and it really kind of stunted my growth because I didn't have that kind of consistent household to grow up in. So I'm living with dad and it's just one thing and we weren't really that close and we obviously kind of drifted apart and then he got remarried and then that's a whole nother battle. That's a whole nother episode to talk about. But the divorce had a negative effect on me, I would say, in terms of how I felt about relationships. I didn't want to get married ever because not only did I live in a home where my parents were not good for each other and it was just bad in every way, there were other couples around me in my family who were not doing well also, and I could see that. So I saw very few examples of really good marriages. So it really made me think, I don't want to get married ever. So when you're a child of a relationship that doesn't work out, that doesn't sustain, that has a negative effect on you as a child, it takes a long time to get through it. And I held on to a lot of that hate for a long time. And pretty much from my teen years, I'm pretty much raising myself. I'm in my house, I'm doing my laundry, I'm doing my things, whatever. It's really stunted what could have been something more positive in terms of growing up. Um, when I finally left home, went to college, but I wasn't really ready for that. I went out there and had way too much fun, did terrible in school, probably still just me dealing with the past, with the bad relationship that I saw. I had a lot of far-reaching effects to me that took a long time to get through. Um, Eventually, ironically enough, what eventually kind of broke that down for me was meeting the person I would eventually marry. Now, anybody who knew me, family, friends, I was clear. I'm never getting married. I'm not doing it. I didn't see good marriages. I'm not trying to do that. And of course, whenever you make some definitive statement like that, life just throws you a curve and like, yeah, now deal with this. I walk into work one day and see this woman, and it's a wrap. I'm like, I'm a mad at woman. That was it. But walking into the building, I'm like, I have no intention of getting married. 10 seconds later, I see who my wife is going to be. I meet her, and we eventually get together. We get married. And from then on, I still had a lot of the hate and a lot of emotional just distress that I was dealing with. But not only were we eventually going to get married, but we were going to have a child together. And once I found out that she was pregnant and we were going to have a kid together, eventually two, I really determined that I can't hate anymore. I can't hold on to that negativity. I have to let that go because these kids need to know their grandfather and their grandmother. They need to know them, and that's not going to happen if I hold on to all this anger towards my dad. Because we didn't speak for a long time before I ended up meeting my fiance, then wife. So this marriage, ironically enough, led me to end up talking to my dad again, kind of rebuilding that relationship, and now we're better now. We're as good as we could be. But for the first, my 20s were really just playing around, messing around, doing whatever, because I wasn't looking for, kind of stability that maybe marriage brings you. But it took finding somebody to kind of get past all the trauma that I dealt with because I'm a child of divorce. And once I met this person and had children and started building a life, I realized it can be good. Marriage can be a good thing. Not every marriage ends in divorce. You can find a good one. And I've been lucky. 12 years in, still married, happy. We have our ups and downs like every couple does. But just the trajectory of my life was very much determined by being a child of divorce and kind of going through the shenanigans until I found somebody to kind of make me forget about all the stuff that happened in the past. And I'm happy now, and I'm only getting married once. I told my wife, I'm like, this is it. If this doesn't work out, it's a wrap. I'm not doing this for a second time. So I'm not gonna get divorced, or I'm not gonna have a second divorce or a second marriage. It's gonna be one. This is it. But that's the story to start off with.
And thank you so much for that. So you said a lot in that one statement. So
Mhm.
let's unpack that. So let's bring it back to your childhood, right? So in terms of what happened in the home, what was life like in the home? Was there a lot of arguing? Was there I mean, I'm just throwing this out there. I don't know if there was physical abuse or emotional abuse or let's bring it back to the home. So take us through your childhood home. What was happening in the home with your parents?
Right. So as a child, there's a few things I remember. Like I mentioned, I'm Haitian, huge Haitian family. So I have a lot of cousins. I was an only child at that point because I was the only child that my parents had. So I was an only kid living in this house. Um, so in that, for that, I get happy. I get what I want, my toys, whatever. My mom is home when I come home from school. That kind of life. But I also recognize and remember that it was a very, very toxic household. So there was a lot of arguing. There was physical abuse. There was emotional abuse. There was everything. Primarily from father to mother. That's what I remember. And I remember because, we didn't have a really big house. So my parents' room is right here. I'm right next door to them. So most of what's happening, I'm hearing it. And, I'm a kid. I don't know what's going on. I'm dealing it with the best that I can. We had other family members who were living in the house who were kind of rotating in as they were getting themselves up. So they lived in the house with us until they got themselves prepared enough to eventually move on and move into another home. So it would be times where it was just my parents and me, but at the same time, in our basement, we had family members who lived there too. So it was me in this house with all this going on, but family in the house also who I know what's going on, and they didn't do anything about it. Just kind of like I said, just letting it be and not interfering when somebody should have interfered. At least somebody should have stood in for my mom, and they didn't. Which is one of the reasons I had a real issue with my family in my 20s and stuff. So besides my father and the family, because all that's happening in this family that's so tight, that's so loving, didn't seem to be that way when it was really necessary. But growing up, physical, mental, emotional, a lot of arguing, I remember that stuff. And it's just, I don't know, I got to the point where probably I was just used to it, which is not a good thing, just dealing with it. And eventually they just decided to divorce. But yes, definitely, definitely all kinds of abuse was going on in that home. Definitely a lot.
So you were able to witness all of this because other people I've spoken to, they've said that they tried to keep it away from the child. They don't want them to hear, but it sounds like you had a different experience where you just and maybe unintentional, but you happen to witness all of this happening.
Yeah, oh, definitely. And I don't think that there was even a thought to hide it. It was just, this is just how he is. This is just how this relationship is. And maybe at times, maybe stuff when I go to bed and such, but kids, we can pick up on things. Not that it was that hard, I'm hearing it, but I guess they try to hide it. So I didn't see everything, but I saw enough. I heard enough to understand what was going on. Excuse me. So yes, so yeah, I saw some of it. I heard most of it, and I know about most of it now from hearing about things later on from my mom and such. But this was not something that was hidden from me at all.
Hmm. So now let's going up to the point. So take us through the moment where your parents decide we're calling it quits. This is officially over.
Mhm.
What happened?
So it wasn't like it would be maybe on TV or something now where the parents kind of sit you down and talk to you about it. Oh, this is, mommy and daddy have decided, blah, blah, blah. It just kind of came to a head. Like, I think my mom had enough. And I can say, even though I remember a lot of things, there's a lot of particular things. I don't have really good timelines. I just remember things happening. I think my mom at this point had enough. She left, and like, this is it. And it's obvious that this was the end of it. Um, there was some time where I didn't even see my mom for a while because my dad just kind of had me in the house, and then she would try to come see me and he wouldn't let her. It was just all kinds of real craziness that was going on till eventually it got to court. So there wasn't an announcement. I didn't get like this kind of special sit down announcement. It just got to the point where it just didn't work out anymore. So it had to go. So it just had to end. And then from then on in, just whatever's going on, relationship with the dad is he's attempting to build that up. I'm with my mom, whatever's going on, and then court, and then all kinds of stuff. And then I have a little bit more family around me, my mom and her family, my dad and his family. I saw more people, but it went from just bad, 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 bad marriage to, all right, it's over, and then we're in court, and then we go from there. And maybe it's just stuff that I kind of blurred out, but that's how I remember it. It was just like it was time. It was just done. It was time to end.
So, like you said, like no one like sat you down. It was like one day you just woke up one day and your mom was gone.
Um, Pretty much. I mean, there was an argument that I think was the final straw, but I don't know if I was there for it. There's so many arguments, so many things that there was one particular moment that I can pinpoint. But I think it really just got to the point where it was just one day, and she had enough, and she just wasn't there. And I think she came to the house to kind of come get some stuff, and then a whole other argument ensued, and then police came over, all kinds of craziness, and obviously at that point, that's a wrap. That I do remember, but I didn't, like I said, I didn't get like that special sit down. It was just, it's done. My mom, I think, just needed to get away just for her sanity, just so that she could remain just alive and just kind of realize this is not for her. She needed to get out. And that's really what happened.
So I guess I'm still trying to understand. Were you aware that the relationship is over, or was it just kind of another moment in the family household?
There was never a point, at least not that I remember, where somebody left the house and then came back. So for me, when she was gone, I think I'm like, okay, this is it. It's finished. I didn't, it just seems like it wasn't announced, but it was pretty obvious what was happening, that she had to go. And then there was this gap of time where I didn't see her. So it's apparent that these two are not really speaking, not going on. It's not going well. I don't really think at any point anybody ever said to me, we're getting a divorce. I just think it was obvious that they were no longer going to be together. So in my head, I'm 10. I'm not really, thinking about it. So I don't have a word. I don't think, maybe I don't even understand what the word divorce means at that point. I just know my mom and dad aren't going to be together anymore. And it was just something that happened. So that's pretty much it.
Mm. So I mean, I know it was a long time ago. Do you remember? Because you said your mom was gone for a gap of time. So were
Mhm.
you? Do you remember what you were feeling at that moment?
Um, I don't, a lot of things, I will say, a lot of things. One, I was confused as to why my mom isn't there. Two, guilt, because and I think most kids will find a way to maybe take some blame, like maybe I'm the reason that it happened. So for that, I had a little bit of that. Why are they not together? Is it me? What did I do? Something like that. Um, I remember being upset at both of them because now we're not together. And even though I knew the relationship was doomed and it was not a good one, I was still used to being in the house of both of my parents. So the fact that this has been splintered, I was not happy with both of them. So I definitely remember feeling that way. But at last, and probably the most powerful emotion for me is I really was really mad at the other adults in my family who let this go this far. Because I mean, it's a very religious family, and a lot of people, we saw each other a lot. People would come in and come back, and nobody handled it. There'll be times that something happened, and maybe my uncle who's a pastor would come and talk to somebody, but nothing was dealt with. It was just a talk for there, and we pray or whatever. But then it just continued. So I remember thinking, where is this family that we're so connected, we're so tight? But where were they when this was going down? Nobody was protecting my mom through this. Where was the family for that? I remember being really bitter about that. And I'm like, I'm a kid. I can't do anything to really help her. Where's the family that's supposed to be helping her out? There's only so much you can do. She's pretty much trapped in that relationship. She was still young. So she had me when she was 18. She's just still a kid dealing with this relationship, dealing with the situation. And what does she do? And I think I recognized all this stuff. It took me a while later, getting older, to recognize that I kind of knew what was going on. And all this stuff kind of resonated with me, that she didn't get the help and I couldn't do it. So I felt a little guilty about that too. So I had a range of emotions going on from that.
So would you say that you felt you were more inclined to connect to your mom than your dad?
So what happened, and I, I don't know how to really say it. So I think my dad is a much better parent now than I think back then. So he worked, he come home, whatever, that type of thing. So he was just kind of what a typical parent father is: go to work, come back, kind of providing that type of thing. I saw my mom because I would go to school and I would come home. My mom, I think, was a nurse or was going to school for nursing. But when I would come home, she was there. So she was obviously the parent that I saw. Once the divorce went into, once it became apparent that they weren't going to be together, then, and I really felt like this was more competitive, less about connecting with me and more about just winning. Then I started having these, hanging out with dad. We go to movies, get ice cream, we start doing all this stuff. And this, I think, was trying to build favor, because I don't know if he was aware at some point I was going to have to say something. And at that point, I'm like, oh, I want to hang out with my dad. We go do fun things all the time. We do all this stuff. So when it came time to say who I wanted to live with, that's who I said. But it's because I was, this kind of situation was kind of laid out. This is the father that you have. This is the parent. This is the one you want to hang out with. So, I mean, I saw them both, but my mom was just being herself, being my parent. And I had another one who really enhanced his the way he was as a father. And as it clearly was a mistake for me to say that, but I'm 10, so I don't know any better. Um, the relationship with my mom, I'm sure, kind of kind of fell off a little bit because I ended up living with my dad through my teen years. But while that was going on, I guess me and my dad somewhat connected a little bit, but not for the right reasons. Not at all.
So are you saying, so when he was taking you to the movies and ice cream, you felt like he was he was manipulating you into saying that you wanted to live with him, like to make him look better
Yeah,
in court?
that's exactly what it was. Yeah, that's what it was. It was trying to, I don't know if he was trying to make up for lost time, for whatever he had done in the past, but let me catch up now and try to be the good dad now that I wasn't before. So that's definitely what was happening then. And it worked. And I'm still sad about that. That I couldn't see past that. I couldn't see through that. But again, I don't have that kind of sense. I wouldn't even put that. I wouldn't even consider that as that my parent was doing that. But it was what it was. So yeah, it was definitely, that was tough time there. Definitely.
So if you can go back in time and change that, you would say that you want to live with your mom.
Oh, definitely. That's where I needed to be. I definitely needed to be because those teen years, middle school, high school, I lived in a good area, if nothing else, we'll say that. But the relationship wasn't there. I didn't feel like I had anybody to talk to. I really felt like I was by myself in that house. It was my dad and his wife and her kids. And I didn't feel like I didn't have any support in that home. So I was pretty much I was in that home by myself. I definitely needed to be with my mom. And but we can't change things that happened in the past. But if I could go back, knowing what I know, it wouldn't even have been a choice. I would have been with my mom and where I should have been the whole time.
So what do you think would have been different had you lived with your mom in those teen years?
I would have been nurtured more. I would have had a parent who I think would have had a real stake in me. My mom was always there for me for school wise and for all the things that I was doing, and she would have continued. She would have just been that parent. Not having that, I was living in the house and I was kind of doing my stuff on my own. I'm just kind of growing up, doing whatever. I probably would have been have somebody to talk to because it really stunted. I didn't have a lot. My social life wasn't that great. I wasn't a cool kid. I wasn't the best looking or whatever. So I didn't hang out with a lot of people. So I was go to school, come home, kind of chill like that. I feel like being with my mom probably would have been more free, more comfortable to kind of express myself, have somebody to talk to, make some friends, do something like that. I probably would have been much better off had I been there. And I would have felt like I was part of a family because I didn't feel like I was part of a family growing up from 10 on. I was just in a house with my dad and his wife and such. I didn't feel a part of that group. So I definitely would have been better off.
Well, it sounds like your dad, I mean, you were 10, and it
Right.
sounds like your dad was doing things that were fun, like the movies and ice
Mhm.
cream and, because is it safe to say your mom didn't do those things and that's why you leaned more
No,
towards
it's
fun
no,
dad?
it's no, it's not. It's not that. I mean, my mom is the best mom in the world. I have a fantastic mother. My mom did that stuff too. It's just every time I was just, I don't know, heightened with my dad. All of a sudden, that's what we were doing. Every weekend we were doing something, and that's not something every weekend we can do. My mom, she works, and she's taking care of me. That's not that kind of time. But my dad is just like, all right, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this. So I just kind of got it thrown at me. Just, oh, we're gonna do this, and then this week do this and this, and it was all kinds of fun. But I got that from my mom too. But it was different because it was coming from somebody who didn't usually do that. So it felt, I don't know. I don't know what the word. I don't know if special is the word. It was different, and it was a good kind of different because maybe I was finally getting some kind of attention that I kind of wished I wanted. I wished that I'd gotten previously. So all of a sudden I got it, and yay, I'm getting all this attention, all this love, and all this. So I'm like, oh, maybe this is the way it's supposed to be. Maybe this is the way it's going to be from here on in. But that wasn't the case.
So you were deceived.
What'd you say?
Deceived. You were deceived?
Um, Yeah, I'll say that definitely. Oh yeah, there was definitely facade put up to get what we wanted. I think it was to one to get me, but two to hurt her, just so that he won. I got the kid, I got our son. He's staying with me, and he wanted her to know that. So yeah, definitely, games were played, no doubt.
So now let's go through the teen years. So what was the arrangement like in terms of seeing both parents, in terms of some one parent on the weekends, or what was the arrangement?
So this is me. I grew up in Long Island, New York. So Long Island is where I grew up. I went to school and lived with my dad. My mom is New Jersey. So what eventually happened is I would every other weekend I would go see my mom. My mom is a nurse, labor and delivery nurse. Now she's a midwife. But she would have her weekends where she would have her weekends off. So the way she would work one weekend she would work, other one she was off. So every other weekend I'd go see her on the weekends that she was off. And I would go see her, took the train in, took Long Island Railroad in to New Jersey Transit, going to see her on Friday, head back on Sunday and see her, and then come back Sunday and just be back home, get ready for school and do whatever. So that is that was that arrangement. And what wasn't good about it is that a lot of times me going to see my mom at times was used against me. If I did something wrong, punishment would be, oh, you can't go see your mom, which is a terrible thing to do because seeing your parent is not a privilege. That's my parent. That's somebody I should see. So there will be times I did something wrong and you're not going to go. And just another part of it that was absolutely terrible. But that's how I went. Just every other weekend, see her. Same thing and maybe for the summers, I would go spend more time with my mom. But typically, it was every other weekend, stay with my dad, going to school, and then run up to Jersey for a little while, hang out with mom, go from there.
So the times that you saw your mom, what were those moments like? Because it sounds like it was very brief moments. It sounds
Yeah,
like.
it was
So
quick. Yeah, it was quick. So I would go see her, hang out for the weekend. I just talk to my mom, let her know what's going on with life and what's going on and how we doing. And even back then, I could tell. I mean, that's a parent. The fact that she only saw me like twice a month, I knew she wasn't. I knew she didn't like that. So I would go see her, and it was nice. But there was always no twinge of something. Like, you heard her that she would have to pick me up and drop me off, like I'm some visitor in the house. So, it was good to hang out. I have a room there. And by then she was remarried. So I would hang out with them and we'd go do things. And we had fun for the time that I was there. But it was different because I was used to being with my mom all the time. And now it's the complete opposite. Now I just see her every other weekend and I'm with my dad all the time. So, yeah, those years from like middle school on was definitely different.
so you went to her all the time. She never
Yeah.
went to Long Island.
The only time she came to Long Island is when I graduated from high school. My parents, my mom was done with that man. She was not going to see him. So she never came to the house. She never wanted to see him. She didn't want to be in his presence, which I understood. I still understand that now. So anytime I was seeing her is because I would go there. She never made her way out. She came to my high school when I graduated. And I think that was at one time she was there. Other than that, she was not coming to that house. She had no intention of being in that space, in any space with my father.
So let's talk about now. How are things now between the two of them?
Oh, they'll never speak. If you think about it, I was born in 74. In 84, 83, 84 is when they got divorced. My mom has held a lot of resentment and understandable. She doesn't want to deal with him at all. I now have grandkids. I have a family. So we've had events where they're there together, but they're just in the same house. And there are times I wanted to have them in pictures together with their grandkids. So I kind of have to finagle it. So I'm like, all right, you sit here, kids here, quick picture. There's no relationship. My mom doesn't want one. She doesn't need one. She's moved on from him. So she doesn't need that. The only memory of that relationship is me. And obviously, me and my mom have a great relationship. Me and my father have a good relationship too, just separate. But those two will never be together. And they don't need to be. That's not something that ever needs to happen.
So it's like sometimes you have to be civil, for the sake of the family.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And yes, in a lot of cases, because we've had I've had two daughters, biological children, mine born. And then when they were born, and then we would have everybody to the house to try to present them to the family, kind of do a thing. So they're both there to see their grandkids and pictures and stuff. So they're in the house. They're in the place together. But there is no talking. There's no how are you. There's no stuff like that. That's not it. It's civility at its most basic. Just like hello as you walk by type of thing. That's just they had a relationship, that relationship which obviously involved me because I'm their child, but that relationship is just something that they shared, which was terrible, and they don't need to relive it. So they do. I think my mom does her best to limit any kind of remembrance of what that relationship was like.
All right. So so let's talk about early. Well, actually, before that, so both of your parents remarried. So what's that like, seeing your father take on a new wife and seeing your mom take on a new husband?
So it's interesting. I mean, my mom remarried and eventually had another son. I have a brother, and I think my mom was happier which was important because I didn't see my mom happy very much. So when she finally got out of that relationship and was able to build her life, because now she's got to take care of herself. She's gonna have to buy her house. She's got to work and do all this stuff. And I see my mom build herself up to the person I know she can be, and then be in a relationship and be married and be happy for that. That was good to see. It was different. It was weird for a little while seeing her with somebody else, but that's what happens. My dad, same thing, knew, excuse me. So he married somebody else. That relationship, actually, what's interesting is they both got remarried and both got divorced again. They both had real issues with relationships again. So it was weird seeing both of them with other people in relationships and seeing them happy for a while, but it didn't work out for either one of them. Um, it's just then I'm just a kid, and whoever's coming into the family trying to impress me, to whatever, I might be your stepdad or stepmom or whatever, and I'm not particularly interested in that stuff. I'm a kid. I want my parents together. Now I know that can't happen, but it's just they're together. You're just a new person trying to make a move, and I saw them come in, and is what it is. At that point, after watching the first 10 years, I really don't feel like I was that involved or that concerned about the next relationship for each one of them. I'd really heard and seen enough that I was pretty much blind to anything going on there. I didn't really care about that. Then I was so insulated. I was just kind of trying to deal with myself and try to stay out of view. But yeah, seeing them with new people, at least for my mom, was good for a minute. My dad, not the best relationship with the wives.
Hmm. So a common thing in terms of children with divorce, that they feel like their worlds are falling apart, and um, did you ever feel like that? Like you felt like your world is falling apart because your parents split up?
Um, the world or the life that I was used to was definitely falling apart. I was used to parents there, good or bad, everybody together type of thing. So that life fell apart. I don't think my world fell apart because I just realized growing up, I had heard and seen it enough that nothing really surprised me. So when this ended, I just kind of toughened up a bit and had to kind of deal with new stuff that was happening. So the life that I was used to was gone, and now a new life is coming about, and kind of made me a much stronger person, I think, for dealing with life from then on in. But not falling apart, just a really massive change in my life.
So it wasn't like, now you have a half brother and a half sister, and now it's like you're forced to make relationships with these kids, or with these siblings or anything like that.
I didn't really see it that way because I'm trying to think. So my brother, my mother's son, my brother there, I lived with them for a while and kind of saw him growing up as a young boy. So I kind of saw him, and in my head, I never really saw him as the half brother type of thing. He was just my brother. And then my dad had a daughter with his wife, and that was just my sister. So I never really separated them. There was never really the title. Obviously, one is my half sister, one is my half brother, stuff like that. But I never really did that. It's just new relationships, and I guess in my mind, I think I've always considered myself an only child. But I have siblings. I have other siblings who I kind of grew up with or I grew up knowing. So it was just something different. Just new relationships, and I'm super cool with my brother and love my sister. Just so new siblings come about because of new relationships. So it was weird. It was different, but just for a while, I was the older one. So it was just, they're just kids. They don't know. Those kids, my brother never even met my dad. And my sister, I don't know, maybe once has met my mother. So there's no real connection with those. They just grow up knowing me as their brother. They don't know anything different. So there was nothing for me to say about that either.
So it sounds like this entire ordeal, it sounds like you looked at it from a more like a fast realization point of view, in terms of like, this is something you were used to, and when you went to court, you had to choose between your parents. It's just you felt weird for a while, but then it's like you quickly got over it, and then your parents remarried, and now you have new siblings, so it wasn't like weird or angry. It's just you may have felt that for a little bit, but then you quickly got over it. So it, I don't know. It seems like there's like a quick realization or a quick I don't say getting over it quickly, but maybe it is maybe getting over it quickly.
Um, I don't know. I mean, it a lot of what happened didn't hit me in those. I don't know how to really say that. It affected me pretty much all through my, my 10 to 20 and 20 to 30. It affected me all these ways. The situation was in front of me, and I saw what it was, and I'm just dealing with it. A quick realization that my parents aren't together, they're remarried, and I'm living with one of them and not living with the other. All that stuff is in my face. There's nothing I can do about that. So that I recognize. The underlying issues that would come later on is stuff that happened in the future. That's me as a teenager growing up. That's me going to college, me coming back from college, me in my 20s not really having a job, just kind of bouncing back and forth. How it affected me happened later. But while the situation is going on, I'm just what can I do? I didn't let it really break me. It was hurtful at times, but I think growing up in it, I was just this is just what it is and deal with it. But later on, a lot of things, just the kind of man I am or was just kind of framed or created because of that divorce.
So now, where were the other family members? Where are the other family members today? The ones you said watched all this going on and didn't do anything. Where are they now?
So I mean, I'm cool with majority of the family. I have uncles and aunts who are all around, and I'm cool with them because when I decided to let a lot of this hate and just anger go, I not only did I have to forgive my dad, a small part forgive my mom, even though I don't think she did anything to deserve any kind of need any forgiveness, but I had to let that go from everybody, all the aunts and uncles who didn't do anything. I had let that all go because now it's time for me to build my family. Now I'm getting married. I'm gonna have a child. I wanted my kids to have that kind. They wanted them to grow up in the kind of situation that I did. I have 30 or so cousins, tons of them, and we grew up together. Even though some of them lived in Pennsylvania while I lived in Long Island, we would see each other and it's just like we lived together all the time. I wanted my kids to have that, to just have your siblings, but have tons of cousins, basically just friends for life. So when I decided to let all that go, that meant forgiving the dad, forgiving the mom, forgiving the parent, the other adults in the family who didn't do anything about it, and just letting that be. So I'm good with all of them. And it's just, now we're just living, being there. It's ancient history, at least as ancient history as it can be for me. And I'm cool with the family.
Hmm. All right. So I just want to make sure I get to this point. It You were talking about you not wanting to get married again, and you even mentioned that the two parents, their second marriages ended up in divorce. So, um, do you think there's a connection between what happened in the past and what happened when you became an adult and how you viewed relationships?
Oh, definitely. Yeah, the reason I didn't want to get married because to me, it didn't seem like it was necessary. I think I always imagined that I would have kids, and I didn't think being married was what you had to do to have kids. In my head, I'm like, I could have a relationship, and then we can have kids, but I didn't need to get married because I really associated marriage with just a bad relationship. It didn't lead to anything. It didn't seem like it was beneficial to anyone, not the man, not the woman, not the children. What's the point of getting married? Um, so seeing it not work for my parents, because I was in full view of that, bird's eye view, seeing that, then they got divorced and they both got remarried, and it didn't work out a second time for both of them. So this is just reinforcing what I'm thinking. Marriage is just not meant to be. Then aside from that, I have this large family with a lot of aunts and uncles who are all married, and there's a few of them in there that are not working. People are just hanging on just for the sake of it, When I'm a kid, I can tell this is not meant to be. People are staying together just because they have kids. They're not happy. I'm like, this is just continuing. Like, why would I get married? Why am I going to do this? They're not happy. They're not happy. I live with people who didn't even like each other. Why would I want to get married? I associated it with bad things. But obviously, with time, getting older and not having my opinion on marriage be based on what I saw, what I lived in, and more on what I then became a part of, which is my marriage, I was able to get past that. So it definitely had an effect. It took me a lot longer, which I guess ended up being a good thing because, the person I was meant to marry, I just found her a lot later in life. But it took me a while to get to the point where marriage is something that I would even consider.
So, how do you feel about marriage now? And I remember you said that you had a son. So, you know, what do you have any fears? I guess I'm asking two different questions. Um, do you have any fears about, you know, your well, I guess your children in general. Do you have any fears about your children, getting into marriage and forming relationships?
Um, I don't know. It's a good question. I don't what I would want my kids, and one son, three daughters. I would want any of my children, if they want to get married, to make sure it's to somebody who they respect and who respects them. So marriage is a big step. It is a big deal, and I think it's important that my kids know that. And the best way I feel that I can show them that marriage can be good and not all bad is not by saying it, is by living it. So I think me and my wife make a conscious effort. We're together. Obviously, we're in the home. The kids see us and they see ups and downs. We argue. We're not crazy. We're not physical. I'm not that kind of man. That's not happening. But what they can see is a marriage which has its ebbs and its flows, and they can see that. But above all, they know that we love each other, and they see that. They see us being affectionate with each other. They see us holding hands. They see me opening doors for my wife when she's coming in and out, and for my daughters. My son sees that. My daughters see that. I think the best way for them to see what a good relationship is to be present for one. Because I knew growing up, I wasn't present for one. So the best thing I can do for my kids is make sure that they see a positive relationship. And positive means honest, which means it's not happy snowflakes and teddy bears all the time, but it's a relationship that you deal with when it's good, you deal with when it's bad. And that's the best thing I can show my kids is that a marriage can work if you're willing to put the time in, find somebody you love and who you know loves you. And that's the best that I do in terms of marriage for my kids.
Awesome. All right. There's so much more I want to ask, but we got to wind it down.
Right.
So do you have any final words of wisdom that you'd like to share with our audience?
Let's see. A good relationship is a beautiful thing. I think it's important that you put the time in to find somebody who respects and loves you for the things that you like, for the things that you don't like, somebody who's willing to sacrifice for you, somebody who's willing to put in the work just like you. So if we kind of throw marriage out, it just kind of seems like it's almost easy, we can do it. And it seems like it's that way because divorce is such an easy option. And I think what's important is that before you marry somebody, it should be somebody you're willing to be with, not somebody you're willing to throw aside if it doesn't work out, if there's a hint of negativity or it's not feeling great. It's got to be somebody you willing to put time in and have some painful moments to deal with. So marriage can be special. You just have to find somebody that you feel is worth your time and your effort. So at first I was like, never get married, but now it's marry somebody, but make sure it's somebody you want to marry. Not somebody your family told you to marry or whatever, or situation. Don't let the fact that maybe now you're having a child, that's not a reason to get married. You need to get married so that you are in a relationship with somebody who you love and who loves you. So, words of wisdom, man, find a girl, find a woman who supports you in everything that you do. Ladies, find a man who respects you and supports you in everything that you do and that you support too. That is a 50-50 relationship that everybody's working together to be together.
Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much for that advice, and thank you for this entire episode. It was definitely enlightening. All right, let me get your banner up here. All
Yeah,
right,
yeah.
hey, so you can find Harvey Laguerre. Am I saying it right?
You were saying it right. Thank you very much. Good job.
Okay, Laguerre. You could, he's all over that social media, so you can
Right.
find him on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter.
Mhm.
Yes, and he also has a podcast. Well,
Mhm.
no, what's going on with your podcast?
So, well, I mean, so I have the two podcasts. Interesting, we were talking about relationship here. So I have the one with my wife called Love is Black, relationship podcast talking about Black love. So that's one. The second one I have is Men of the Prize, which is a podcast just for men talking about our situations, our fears, our ups and downs, our vulnerabilities, all that stuff. So my podcasts are pretty much my wife. The one with my wife is going to be over in a few days because that season is done. My podcast, my personal one, ends in June. That's going to have a nice, good ending. Gabrielle, you're part of it. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Um, so I got my podcast going. I'm going to take a little break and I come back. We go for season 2 of Men of the Prize, go to season 4 for Love is Black. But it's just a place to talk. One is talking about Black love, relationship style, and the other one is talking about Black love, men loving themselves.
Beautiful, beautiful. And you can find the podcast on Anchor. That's your personal one or the one?
Yeah. I should have given you. I guess next time I'll give you my link for the Love Is Black one. But the one that you're seeing coming across your screen, that is the link for my podcast, Men of the Prize.
All right, there you go. All right, so you can check out one of his podcasts there. The link is scrolling below.
Yeah.
And the other one that he's talking about, we could always put that in our description.
Okay.
Well, for the ones watching this on our YouTube channel. And I'm sure they could find the other one on
Oh,
your.
just you can just look up Love Is Black podcast. That when you search it, we come up. So that's easy to find.
All right, there you go. Just Google it. There you go.
Yep, definitely.
The answer to
Definitely.
everything. Just Google it. All
Yes,
right, you
sir.
guys. So definitely check him out. If you have any questions or if you just want to reach out to him, his information is there, scrolling below, and it's also in the description for our YouTube viewers. All right, Harvey, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
All right, I'm gonna put you backstage now. All right, you guys, it's just you and me. All right. All right, and we have reached the conclusion of our episode. Thank you so much for joining us today. So, wherever you are watching this episode, whether that is on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, our main website, wherever you are watching this episode, check out our other videos and clips and don't forget to follow us. Follow, like, subscribe, whatever the button is. Please stay in touch with us. And let us know what you thought about this episode by leaving a comment in the comment section below or in the comment thread. I, Gabrielle, would love to know your thoughts about this episode. And this web series is a production of A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. So if you would like to learn more about our company, our services, workshops, and the things we have to offer, maybe you want tutoring for yourself or for your child, please check us out. Our information is scrolling below right about here. But I will say our website is www.astepaheadtutoringservices.com. So definitely check us out if you're looking for some tutoring services or you just want to learn more about us. And I also encourage you to sign up for our email list and our texting list. You will receive exclusive discounts, promotions, and special offers when you sign up for either list or both. So definitely sign up for the email list and the texting list. That information again is also scrolling below at the bottom of your screen. And for those of you watching this on YouTube, that information will be provided to you in the description. So I want to make sure I get this last message in before we close. questions.
Hey there, have you heard of us? We're a small team of tutors here at A Step Ahead Tutoring Services. We believe that education and information should be accessible to everyone, regardless of income, race, or creed. We're dedicated to making this happen, but we need your help. Please consider making a donation to our company. No amount is too small. Your donation will allow us tutors to remain employed, offer free and low-cost services, put on productions like this web series, and reach out to families nationwide. With your help, we can tackle the academic challenges of our students and the emotional, mental, and behavioral changes that result from these challenges. As a bonus, we can improve our communities in the process. Support us today. Note: we're a for-profit company. We're not a charity. Your donation may not be tax deductible. Please consult a tax professional.
All right, you guys, and that's it for our episode. Thank you so much for joining us. I look forward to seeing you at the next episode. And now, I am signing off.